column F has a value of 7 at this point. So I'm using 7 to overwrite column E because X is column E. So right at this point, which is on row 19, on row 19, I have to update column E to a value of 7. Are there any questions about this part? When you can see the entire thing in one single screen, it really is a whole lot easier to read. But since I can't do that, on the screen like this, and still have people in the back to be able to read, this looks a little bit more confusing than it really has to be. Okay. Then we move on to the next line in the trace, which is line 18. Line 18 says we want to copy the value of t to y. But what is y? Y is also known as column F. So this time we update column F to a value of 2 on row 20 of the trace. So row 20 of the trace, column F gets a value of 2, just like that. And then we are done with line 18. We move on to line 19, and we get out of here, cross out all these guys, and then we return to line 8. Okay, what does line 8 do? Line 8 wants to add 1 to I. I is column J, so we say this is line 8. Column J gets updated to 3 this time. And then we go back to the beginning of the loop, which is line 6, to re-evaluate the condition. The condition is I, which is now 3, less than bar A bar, which is 4, minus 1, that makes it 3. Is 3 less than 3? Nope. So this is false this time, which means we need to get out of the loop. So when we get out of the loop, we end up on line 10. Line 10 is here. So then we say this invocation is all done. So we indicate these columns are now gone. And then we use this return line number on column G to tell us that we should return to post. And once we get back to post, there's nothing to do. And that's the end of the trace. Okay. So this trace is not difficult in terms of messing up, using a return statement to return back to a return statement, which is going to happen in the next question. This one is complicated or tricky in a way. Well, I shouldn't say tricky because this type of programming actually happens in all sorts of programming languages. The important part is X and Y of the swap subroutine. They are aliases not of columns that belong to the caller directly, but they refer all the way back to the global variable. Okay, and you just have to make sure that every time you write to X, when X is on the left-hand side of an assignment statement, you change whatever column it refers to. Okay, and that action happens immediately on that assignment statement. Are there any questions about this trace? To make it a little bit easier to read, just to see what happens, I'm going to, make the font a little bit smaller and get rid of the split screen, just so that we can see the effect of the statements. And we can make it just a little bit bigger, like that. Okay. I know, at the back you may not be able to see, everything, but the important part is the columns that belong to the global variable B gets modified by the swap subroutine directly. That's the most important part of this question. Okay, so are we good on this? Yes? Okay, we're good. It's already saved in the folder, so we are also good with that. I'm kind of debating whether we should take a break right now or take a break later, because the next question, let me just show you what the next question looks like. Because if you guys are kind of tired already, then we should wait, take a break. The next question looks really, really easy, except it is a little bit, it has a twist to it. Okay, So we have 3 lines like that, and I say immediately after line 18, x is already having a value of 35. So I'm trying to debug this subroutine or debug this code here and say, okay, but I can only observe that after line 18, x has a value of 35. So what possibly can be the value of x right before line 16?
3. Before line 16.
Well, that's the question. Okay, so that makes this question a little bit trickier than it seems. Okay, because it looks really simple. I mean, we know pre and post conditions, we know how to trace, but this is a little bit more tricky than that. So I think we should probably take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we'll start with this question. And then there's also another question, which is also a trace question, and that one is just mechanically, can you keep track of what is happening? So that one I think is probably the easiest of all the questions because we have seen it already. It's just a matter of keeping track of things correctly. So let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back at 9:14. Okay, and then we'll continue with the practice test at that point.